Hello everyone, this is Pooka back with another Pokemon TCG video. Now, the latest set, Furious Fists, is out on Pokemon TCG Online, which means we'll have all sorts of new cards to work with, all sorts of new deck ideas, and we also have a brand new rotation. For those who don't know, the rotation for this season's format is going to be Boundaries Crossed On. So Boundaries Crossed through Furious Fists. That means we are losing the sets Next Destinies, Dark Explorers, Dragons Exalted. I believe those are the three we lose. And then, of course, the mini set Dragon Vault and a handful of promos as well. But we are left with a lot of the same cards, so it's going to be a largely similar format, but now we have all sorts of new toys to work with. Now, before I jump into the strategy of this deck, I do want to say, to those of you wondering, where are the videos for the Top Cut Invitational? Where are they? Well, we actually had quite a few technical difficulties at the event. Number one, we did not have any internet, so all of our footage is a little raw because we didn't have all of our stuff on the computer. But basically, what I'm trying to say is it's going to take a little bit. We need to do a lot of editing. We also had the microphones on mute for a round, so we have to redo one of the videos completely. But rest assured, the matches will go up. We have a lot of exciting matchups between some great players. So sorry that it's going to be a little bit of a delay, but we will have the Top Cut Invitational videos up probably by next week. I won't make any promises, but I'm going to be working very hard to get that stuff done. Anyway, on to the first deck of Furious Fists that I have for you guys. Going to be a pretty simple one. Going to be a big fighting Pokemon deck. So, the number one card out of this set, I would say, is this Strong Energy. So, this card can only be attached to fighting Pokemon, provides a fighting energy, and then the attacks of the fighting Pokemon this card is attached to does 20 more damage. Sheesh. Alright, so Strong Energy is ridiculous, right? All these fighting Pokemon do plus 20 damage if they have a Strong Energy attached. So the biggest Pokemon we're going to have here is Landorus EX. Hammerhead, of course, everybody knows, does 30 and then 30 to a benched Pokemon. Now, with Strong Energy, that's 50 and 30 to a benched Pokemon. With Muscle Band, that's 70 and 30 to a benched Pokemon. So that is 100 damage for a single energy. Right, 70 to the active, 30 to the bench. That is absurd. And we also have Fighting Stadium. The attacks of each fighting Pokemon in play do 20 more damage to the defending Pokemon EX. So against a Pokemon EX, you can do 90 damage for a single energy and 30 to the bench. That is just absurd. We just need the right combination of cards, of course. But man, that is so strong. I guess that's why they call it Strong Energy. Alright, so we have all sorts of great fighting Pokemon in the format to kind of take advantage of this. Landorus EX is the most obvious one. I would say second is Lucario EX, the brand new Pokemon EX out of Furious Fists. 3 cool attacks. We haven't seen a Pokemon with 3 attacks in quite some time, so that's a welcome change. Missile Jab does 30, and then not affected by resistance. Corkscrew Smash does 60, then you draw TF6, and then Somersault Kick does 100 for 3. Now, of course, with Strong Energy, Muscle Band, Fighting Stadium, these attacks start to become ridiculous. For example, if you have 2 Strong Energy, you're already doing 140 with Somersault Kick, a Muscle Band, that's 160, Fighting Stadium, wow, you're doing 180 against a Pokemon EX, but you're not really going to need to do 180 against anything else, so yeah, Lucario EX is deceptively strong. It doesn't look very impressive because the numbers aren't very big, but when you take into account all those other factors, all these other damage modifiers, it's a very good card. I think this may be one of the most underrated cards in this set. I mean, sure, it's a Pokemon EX, people know it's probably going to be cool, but I think it's a lot better than people give it credit for. Alright, so we have 2 of those. Another Pokemon I feel is a little underrated, even I underrated it a little when I first saw it, is this Hawlucha. I think that's how you say it. Hawlucha. Alright, anyway, it has the attack Flying Press, you know, like the Luchador wrestling Pokemon it is. The Flying Press from the top rope. 60 but only against Pokemon EX. But 60 for 1 is very good when you take into account, once again, a Strong Energy Muscle Band Fighting Stadium against a Pokemon EX. With a Strong Energy Muscle Band Fighting Stadium, we are doing 120 damage for a single energy. What? That is ridiculous. Now, it does have this ability, Shining Spirit. Damage from this Pokemon's attacks isn't affected by weakness or resistance. This can be good and bad. Against something like an Yveltal EX is going to be good, no resistance. Against something like a Thundurus EX is going to be bad. We don't have the weakness. But we can kind of account for that. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to finish up looking at all the fighting Pokemon. Next one is going to be this regular Landorus. Shout of Power. Does 20 for 1, gets a basic energy out of the discard and attaches it to one of your benched Pokemon. So it's some nice energy acceleration. Very reminiscent of the Yveltal with Oblivion Wing, but we get to take advantage of Strong Energy and Fighting Stadium as well. So another pretty strong fighting Pokemon. And we're also going to have good old Terrakion. Believe it or not, it's still in the format. It was printed not only as a secret rare in Boundaries Cross, but also as a regular holo again in Legendary Treasures. So we're going to have Terrakion for, geez, how many years now? This might be the 4th year this guy's in the format. Of course, Retaliate, it can be very strong, 90 for 2, and I don't need to explain to you once again how much that can do with Strong Energy and the rest. So Terrakion, another nice little fighting Pokemon we can have in here. Another cool thing just to look at, weak to Water, weak to Psychic, weak to Grass, weak to Lightning. Even though we have so many fighting Pokemon, they have 4 different weaknesses. Now, the Landorus here, they do share a weakness in Water, but that's crazy to think about. You have so many of the same type and so many different weaknesses. That's very cool, makes the deck a lot more versatile. Our last attacker is going to be Mewtwo EX. X-Ball, pretty simple. Now, Lucario EX is weak to Psychic, so sometimes we can just drop down a Mewtwo against an opponent's Deoxys EX or Mewtwo EX and just get a quick X-Ball. X-Ball is always going to be pretty good, and I do like running some non-fighting energy so that when we use Land's Judgment, we don't have to discard 3 energy. So, a couple double colors help out with that, and might as well run Mewtwo if you're going to run those. Alright, our final Pokemon in the deck, Garbodor. We have a 2-2 line for Garbotoxin. Of course, this just shuts down all sorts of stuff. Biggest one's going to be Pyroar. Garbotoxin will allow us to just plow through Pyroar. So, we have a nice line of this. You could definitely bump up the line if you're scared of Pokemon catchers and heavy lines of Pyroar. You know, you could do like a 3-3 line, something like that. But I think 2-2 is pretty good for right now. Alright, let's get to some of the interesting parts of the deck. The trainers as well. We've already seen the muscle bands, the fighting stadiums. Alternatively, you could do just Verbank City Gym, Hypnotoxic Laser. That's kind of the more classic route, but since Fighting Stadium is brand new, figured I'd show that off. Let's take a look at the supporters, though. We have Karina. Search your deck for a fighting Pokemon and an item card, and put them into your hand. Now, this, at first glance, might not seem particularly strong, but let me tell you, it really is. Searching for a fighting Pokemon and then also an item card is very, very versatile because of how many different item cards we can run. Now, we already have the Muscle Band. This can just grab you a Landorus and a Muscle Band, and you can start pounding away with Hammerhead, but we have so many different options. If we need more cards, we can get a Bicycle. If we want to search for a Strong Energy, we have a Computer Search. If we want to do a little bit extra, we have a Hypnotoxic Laser. If we need a regular energy, let's grab Professor's Letter. If we want to get rid of their tools, let's get a Startling Megaphone. If we need to switch, let's grab one of those. If we need to search for a Trubbish too, let's grab an Ultra Ball. And if we need a Float Stone, we can take that too. So, I mean, Karina is just very good. I mean, you want to build your deck around it when you have these fighting Pokemon, when you have so many of them. But yeah, I mean, just look at all the options we can take with this one supporter card. Extremely strong. In addition, we do have 4N. Yes, N is still in the format. It was a promo. It's like a promo number 100 or something like that, or 101. It's a league promo. It has its own number. It is in the format. It's not gone. Sorry, folks. For Professor Juniper, not gone either because it is this secret rare in Plasma Freeze. Colress, of course, still around as well. And then we have a Lysander to round it off. So I believe that's going to wrap up the deck here. And we just have 6 fighting energy, 4 of these strong energy, and then 2 double colorless. And this is the fighting deck. So there are probably a million different ways to build this kind of a deck. This is just my first draft, one I want to take a look at right away. And hopefully we get a good game with it. So let's jump over to Pokemon TCG Online and see what happens. Now, one thing I do want to mention, the rotation has not happened yet on Pokemon TCG Online, so right now the quote-unquote standard games will be actually Next Destinies through Furious Fist, which is actually pretty infuriating sometimes when your opponent drops down an Excelgor or a Enhanced Hammer, things like that just kind of ruin your day. But until the rotation happens, we're just going to have to deal with it. You know, you can play against friends, but if you're playing in random battles, you never know what you're going to run into. You just kind of have to hope that somebody will kind of play fairly and use the cards for the rotation next year. Alright, so we do see a Fanpea right away and a Donphan hit the discard pile. Now, Donphan is an interesting card. On paper, it looks pretty small. It just does 40 damage, then switches, but boy, things start to add up. You know, you think things are strong with Landorus here, where you can do, look at this, 50 with a hammerhead right there and 30 to the bench. Imagine if I had a muscle band too, I would have been doing 70 and 30 to the bench. Donphan adds up too. We already see a muscle band, a fighting stadium, so this is going to hurt. Right? Spinning turn is already going to do 80 damage. If he gets a muscle band too, that's going to do 100. That'd be 100 for a single energy. That is nonsense. That is just... that hurts. And Donphan is a 130 HP stage 1. It can run into other Pokemon like that Snorlax back there. And, man, I'm going to have to try out a Donphan deck after this. That is just silly. So we do see an escape rope and then a bicycle. I'm not really sure why my opponent played that escape rope. I'm actually pretty happy about it. Right? Now my Landorus doesn't take the brunt of that damage. So we will see a float stone on the Snorlax, though. And then the spinning turn, switching out to the Snorlax. That does have the block ability that would prevent me from retreating, but I do have that Lysander in hand. So we'll go ahead and bring out the Donphan, attach another energy to the active Landorus, since it doesn't seem like Hawlucha will do much of anything. We don't have any Pokemon EX on the opponent's side right now, but we're going to go ahead and hit that Donphan for 50, knowing that next turn, even if it goes to the bench, we can hammerhead it for the finishing 30 damage. Alright, so seems okay so far. There is a Karina from my opponent, though, grabbing a Fanpea and an item card as well. What's that going to be? I guess we will wait and see what is going to go with the Fanpea, and it's an Ultra Ball. So my opponent will be able to search out multiple Pokemon this turn. Pretty annoying. Fanpea coming out. We'll see if the Ultra Ball goes for anything, and indeed it does. Getting rid of Silver Bangle and Muscle Band. Probably a couple of costly discards, but yikes. Sigilif. Here it comes as the Safeguard ability, of course, which means my Landorus won't be able to hurt it. So not good. Alright, I do get a Colress off the top, though, so I can draw a fresh hand of 4 here. Trying to decide whether or not I want to play the Float Stone down. Deciding not to. And there we go, Hammerhead for 0. But we can knock out that Donphan on the bench, so not bad. We did get the first prize, but man, Landorus is hurt quite a bit. And this makes me think maybe I should play some Max Potion in this deck. Max Potion with Hammerhead is always pretty darn good, since it only costs 8 single energy. So that's a card I'd probably consider adding. Now, I haven't gotten much going so far. I believe the only supporter I played beside that chorus for 4 was a Lysander, and that's just not good. So we've had a pretty bad opening hand here, not able to really show off the true power of this deck. You know, this is a very aggressive deck. It's trying to put on pressure immediately. Trying to do those big hammerheads early on, or charge forward with a quick Lucario EX, but we've just been sitting back and hammerheading for 0 to a Sigilyph. We see another Karina from my opponent, and there is a Donphan, Floatstone going on to the Sigilyph, and a Bicycle for a couple cards. Now, if my opponent can manage to get a Strong Energy and a Muscle Band, I will get knocked out, and that would be pretty unfortunate. Probably not too likely given my opponent's lack of stuff, but we shall see what's going to happen here. Only 4 cards would be pretty unlucky after a Bicycle for a couple cards. I would think to get a knockout. You have to be like Strong Energy Muscle Band to get a knockout, and that would be unfortunate. We do see a computer search, though. Oh, man. That's unfortunate. So, it's just it's a Hypnotoxic Laser along with the Strong Energy, but I mean, this is still really bad. We're going to see the spinning turn for 80 and then the switch into the Sigilyph. Not exactly what I'm looking to see. And I have this decision, do I play my N? And it's a rough decision to make. My hand, honestly, is really bad. I don't have any way to deal with Sigilyph. I've already used my Lysander. Landorus is going to get knocked out by Poison. So, as much as I hate to do this, giving an opponent with 0 cards, 6 fresh ones, is honestly my best option, and it is so painful. But what else can I do, right? My opponent would just keep smacking me with Donphan and then switching into Sigilyph, and I have nothing to hurt it. Hawlucha is a non-EX, but it can't hurt other non-EXs, so it's just kind of stuck there. I was hoping to get a switch or a Floatstone off of the N, but it failed miserably. So now I get knocked out by Poison going back into my opponent's turn, and he got 6 cards off of the N. I mean, that was just the worst possible situation to be in. Ugh. So this Donphan and Things deck is really giving me trouble so far, but we are getting the Trubbish into play finally. We should be able to get Garbodor out soon, and then after that, we should be able to deal with all these walls that my opponent is throwing up. Right, the Snorlax, the block will be turned off, the Safeguard on Sigilyph will be turned off. Escape Rope here is going to be really annoying. I'm going to go ahead and send out Mewtwo EX, since it's probably the Pokemon that will be the least useful against this kind of a deck. Can't see myself using X-Ball very often. Right, there's just going to be Pokemon with no energy active most of the time. And if I ever do manage to hit a Donphan, it's only going to have like a 1 energy on it. So, Mewtwo seems like the best Pokemon to throw out. Landorus has 3 retreat, don't want him to get stuck up there. Lucario is probably going to be my attacker, don't want him to get stuck up there, so just losing all around. Then we see a second Strong Energy on the Donphan and a Silver Bangle. Ouch. So this is going to do 40, 60, 80, 100... 130 with spinning turn, and he gets to switch to something. Man, I really need to try out Donphan. What is going on here? It's just Strong Energy is making every fighting Pokemon viable, I think. That's just silly to think about. It's making an entire type playable. Yikes. 130! Come on. That's so much. And he gets to switch into Pokemon of his choice. So that was a brutal turn for me. I top deck a Muscle Band. I'm actually going to drop that down onto the Trubbish, since we can get Garbotoxin going if I get the Garbodor. And indeed, I do get the Garbodor. So we'll go ahead and drop him down. And I can just retreat the Mewtwo here with the DC Missile Jab. It doesn't apply resistance, but it does apply weakness. So let's go ahead and retreat into the Lucario EX. And with that muscle band on it, we can go ahead and missile jab for 100, taking down the Snorlax. But this seems like a losing battle. Sure, I knocked out that Snorlax, but that Donphan, it's just going to keep switching into things and hit me for a bazillion damage. And what can I do about it? I don't know. It's going to be so tough. It's going to two-hit my EXs, and what the? Team Flare Grunt? Huh? What just happened here? Ay, ay, ay. Okay, well, this is just getting more and more ridiculous. I'm not really sure what is happening at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and Ultra Ball, I guess, to try to figure out what the world just happened. This is where the regular Landorus is going to come in handy a little bit. All right, Donphan's doing a lot of damage because it's against Pokemon EX. Regular Landorus, not a Pokemon EX, still has 120 HP, so hoping he'll do something here. I desperately need to draw a switch. I could go ahead and almost knock out Sigilyph with Lucario EX, but I feel like it's much better to go for a switch here. So play down all the cards and then try to bicycle for 4. And thankfully, draw the switch here, go into the Landorus, and Shout of Power. Somehow shouting with power does 60 damage and then gets an energy out of my discard onto one of my bench Pokemon. Now, one thing I am keeping in mind here is Donphan's Wreck. For 4 energy, it does a lot of damage, and it can knock out my Landorus in one hit. Now, Spinning Turn can't really knock me out in one hit. So I'm going to put the energy on my Mewtwo and say, you know what? If you want to use Wreck, you're going to risk your big Donphan. So this may buy me a turn, right, to get an extra energy into play. Or it can put my opponent's Donphan in harm's way, where I can then X-ball it and then be at a pretty big advantage. Taking away a Donphan with 4 energy, it's going to be the biggest threat I have to worry about. But I don't have any energy or supporters, so this may be a problem. Let's see. We do see the Karina from my opponent. Let's see what this is going to search for. Of course, fighting Pokemon and an items. Looks like there's no fighting Pokemon left, so just that Float Stone going on to the Keldeo. But Garbotoxin does shut off Rush In, so not particularly worried about that. Just checking out everything that's on my opponent's field. Startling Megaphone, for me, seems like it would be very good at this point. And my opponent realizes, alright, I probably can't wreck this Landorus. Then Mewtwo comes up for an X-Ball. So decides to Spinning Turn once again. Pretty reasonable play, I think. So I do draw Fighting Energy for the turn. If he would have used Wreck, we would have X-Balled him for a lot. So smart of my opponent to get out of dodge while he still could. I'm going to attach that second energy to the Mewtwo, just preparing it for an X-Ball if need be. And then Shout of Power and get an energy onto the Landorus EX on the bench. I could have just attached to the Landorus, set up for a big Land's Judgment play, but I don't know, getting the energy on the Mewtwo seems pretty important. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I didn't know if I'd get a supporter, but I did. I got a Juniper, which is pretty cool in my book. So now we have some things going our way. Got a Juniper, and got the Startling Megaphone. And that's going to discard the Float Stone and the Silver Bangle on my opponent's side. So discarding the Float Stone is a pretty big deal since he's gone through so many, and we've seen a couple escape ropes as well. Going to go ahead and bench that Terrakion at this point, put him down, and then I may actually start powering him up since Retaliate is one of the things. Well, it's a Pokemon that has a lot of HP left since all my EXs are pretty much beat up at this point. And it can also knock out Donphan with a Retaliate with a strong energy. So we're going to go ahead, just promote the Landorus, Hammerhead for 50 thanks to the Fighting Stadium. I'm not really sure what to go for here. So we're just going to hit the Phanpy. You know, if the Keldeo is stranded active, which is possible, 3 Float Stones gone, 2 Escape Rope gone. Gosh, I can't imagine my opponent playing any more switching cards. So if we can just Hammerhead the Keldeo and... Oh, it's a Donphan now. And knock them both out, I would win, but no! A switch? Are you kidding me? That's the 6th switch card in this deck. Is that right? 3 Float Stone, 2 Escape Rope, and a switch? What is that? Right now, I'm wishing I played more Lysander. I probably need to add a couple more of those. At least one more. Lysander is very good in these slower kinds of games where it takes forever for somebody to win, especially with these hit-and-run kind of decks like Donphan. Imagine how awesome it would be right now to just have a Lysander when it goes to the bench and knock it out. It would be very nice. Alright, so my opponent deciding once again what to do, going for the spinning turn again. And switching into the Snorlax. Alright. So here, I don't think I can risk using Landorus EX again. It doesn't seem like a very good plan. So I may just retaliate with Terrakion for 100, setting up the Snorlax for a later Hammerhead. Seems pretty good. Since later on we could just get the easy knockout on the bench. So let's go ahead and Karina for the Landorus EX. And then I can grab either a switch or a float stone here. I think I'm just going to take the switch. Since if my opponent plays a startling megaphone, I'd like to have float stone, I guess. We're going to take a look at what's left in the deck. I do have a strong energy left, so in the event that the Terrakion gets knocked out, we can get computer search for Landorus EX, the fresh one, and then Hammerhead with that. So still have enough resources left to do some stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and switch into the Terrakion. We'll go ahead and play this strong energy onto Terrakion, and then let's retaliate for 100 damage to the Snorlax since it is weak to fighting. Still going to be an uphill battle. Man, if I had one more Lysander, I think I would probably win this. We should be able to pick off Keldeo at some point if I had another Lysander, but I only play 1, which tells me I need to play at least 2. So this is just, again, a rough draft of this deck. Going to have to make some improvements, but I'm thinking now what's going to happen. What will happen if I use Retaliate here? And I don't think it's a good thing. I'll probably get wrecked by Donphan. So instead, I'm going to retreat into Hawlucha. Now, this has a couple purposes. Number 1, my opponent didn't use a switching card that turn, so Snorlax may be stuck. It may be just there for the rest of the game. Like I said before, my opponent has played a lot of switching cards. Alright, 3 Float Stone, 2 Escape Rope, 1 Switch. All have been played so far. And I can't imagine my opponent playing... Well, I couldn't even imagine my opponent playing 6 switching cards. I certainly can't imagine my opponent playing 7 of them. So if my opponent plays 7 switching cards, I just applaud. I say, well done, sir, you have trumped me. But if there is not a 7th switching card, then I will just pass and gladly leave my Hawlucha out there to spread his wings and fly us to victory, as my opponent runs out of cards and loses. Of course, Snorlax has a massive 4 retreat cost, so it's not going to retreat anytime soon. My opponent has far fewer cards left than me, and this is one of those situations where, even though you're probably losing on the board, your opponent has run out of resources and you can just pass to victory. And it's one of those spots where actually taking a knockout is detrimental to you winning. These strange situations do come up in Pokemon sometimes where it's correct to not take a knockout because you will win through some absurd circumstance. And this seems to be one of them. And, oh, he actually calls me a coward. Oh, ouch, my pride. Um, oh, man. I don't even know what to say to that. That's rude, man. I'm not a coward. I'm a winner. That's what we do. We look for a way to win. There's no dishonor in passing the turn. It's all strategy, man. All right, so will my opponent have another switching card? That's the question here. Judging by that insult, I would probably say no. That's probably the last-ditch effort of, come on, attack me, coward. What, you won't. And now he just says he just realized who I am, and he would have played serious if he knew who I was. So he's going to pass the turn again. And I'm going to pass it right back to him because he is running out of cards. And that's going to be that. What a way to end this game. We started off very poorly. Look at how much damage is on my Pokemon. Look at how many damage counters are out there. There's 130 on the Mewtwo, 120 on the Landorus, 130 on the Lucario, 50 on the Hawlucha. Very fortunate my opponent doesn't play Dusknoir, but he's actually going to play a Juniper, and that means he's all out of cards, and all we can do is pass to victory. So our fighting deck unexpectedly decks someone out in a very long and drawn-out game. Very good game, very close. Donphan definitely more powerful than I thought, so lots of strategies opening up now with this brand new set, Furious Fists. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will certainly have some more for you soon. I am Pooka from the Top Cut, and I will see you guys next time.